Start recording. Okay, welcome everybody to this this webinar on Inventor and Fusion 360 collaboration. My name is Albert Boyd. I will be presenting today. I'm an application engineer for Micrographics. And if at the end of this webinar you have any questions or anything like that, please feel free to email me at albert@mgfx.co.za. Okay, so just a little bit about myself. I'm an industry specialist for the Autodesk manufacturing products. This goes on for Inventor, AutoCAD Mechanical. I dabble a bit with the AutoCAD Plant and PNID software packages as well, and as well as the Autodesk data management software packages like Vault Professional, Workgroup, and Basic. I've also been, also do all the AutoCAD the sort of software as well. AutoCAD, the vanilla AutoCAD, I do training for that and consulting, as well as AutoCAD Electrical, to name a few. Got about 19 years of Autodesk experience, so I've been doing this for quite a while. And that sort of experience in both the manufacturing industry and then just sort of going over onto the build industry as well has helped me to integrate the software quite nicely between these two industries. I'm AutoCAD and Inventor certified professional, so I've written my exams. A very good certification to go to. So if you are, if you are going to be sort of looking at certification or just testing out your skill set, this is a very, very good certification to go to. It's a 2-hour exam which you can write, and then you'll be certified for those products. I'm also an Autodesk certified instructor. So what this means is that I've done sort of training with Autodesk, and I've done the exams that they have sufficiently said that I can go and train the software that I'd like to present. I've also presented at the Autodesk University Extension in both Joburg and Cape Town. If you haven't been to the Autodesk University Extension, or AUX as we call it, I think once COVID has sort of gone away, we do start to have these in place again. Very, very good place to go and meet industry sort of professionals, or professionals in your industry, and network with them and learn how they're using the software, and maybe you can learn a thing or two. This is an extension from the Autodesk University that comes out of Vegas, and that's also, I think we just recently had one now, but if you do want to go see what all the fuss is about, you can just go and Google Autodesk University, and the website will come up, and they've got all the recorded webinars that they've actually created over there, and you will learn a ton. So if you haven't done it before, do it now. Great place to go learn and upgrade your skills. Okay, so what's the agenda for today? So with the agenda, I'm just going to quickly go through what is Inventor and what is Fusion 360. We can do a comparison between the two, or how best to collaborate between the two, but we kind of need to know what they are as well. So let's take a little bit of it. Which product is best suited for you or your workflow? Is it Fusion 360 or Inventor? This is something that comes along quite often, when guys are starting to go into the whole 3D modeling. Which one do you use? They look so similar. They both do the same thing. So we'll just talk a little bit about what each one does, so you get a better understanding of what's going on. And then obviously just then collaborating for best outcomes. There are two different packages, but they also work together. And that's actually just one of the things that Autodesk does very, very well, is that all their software work together. Let it be Civil 3D and Revit, or Revit and Inventor, or Inventor and Fusion 360. Autodesk has found great workflows and great ways to have that continuity when working with files. One of the biggest problems when you are working with with your CAD files is that you have duplicates. And when you start to have duplicates, you have different, obviously a duplicate is a different file, but for instance, if I've got my design file and then someone makes a duplicate of it to make a couple of changes, and then that change goes off to sort of manufacturing, or the guys who's working the CNC machine. Now, which one does he use? Does he use your one or the one that you made modifications on? The one that you made modifications on, why were those modifications made, and why is it not attached to the original file? So that then can be quite problematic, where for instance, if someone goes and makes 1,000 parts of something, but maybe they've got the old revision or the old version, and now you're sitting with 1,000 parts of something, and material is expensive. So this can be a very, very expensive mistake. And then I'm just going to go to outcome. So that's just collaborating, for the best outcomes. And I'll go through a summary and we can have a quick little Q&A. And you can ask any questions about the webinar. Okay, so what is Inventor? So I've taken this straight off the web. Okay, so Autodesk Inventor is a computer-aided design application for 3D mechanical design, simulation, visualization, and documentation. Yeah. There's just a little picture of what Autodesk Inventor looks like. So what does this mean? What does Inventor do? So what Inventor does, it allows you to do sketch creation. Okay. So with that sketch creation over there, you'll see that you're able to go and create those 2D sketches. The 2D sketch that you create, which will then become your 3D components. So if you've ever done any design in AutoCAD, you'll know that AutoCAD is a 2D component. And that 2D component, when you want to make it into 3D, you have to give it an elevation in the Z direction. Then you've got your part modeling and events. And the part modeling is both solid and surface modeling as well. So, surface modeling, why do we have surface modeling? You got surface modeling because sometimes things you aren't able to make really aesthetic looking, smooth kind of consumer products with normal solid modeling. You need to kind of create surfaces, join them together, and then you'll be able to create a solid model out of that surface. Then you've got your sheet metal component, okay? And sheet metal component is a special type of part where you have to have a uniform thickness that runs through the entire part. Now, you know that if you've created sheet metal, then what happens is you will, you create it, you'll give it some rules. What's the thickness of it? Where's the K factor? So the K factor would be that neutral line that runs through the component, where the material does not stretch or contract. Once you've got your sheet metal component, you are able then to go and unfold that sheet metal component to get the flat pattern with all your bend lines. And then you can take it out and get it laser cut and then send it to someone else to get bent up to the component or the shape that you need it to do. Then you've got your assembly creation as well. So with the assembly creation, it allows you to grab your components and put it together. So in your part modeling, in your sketch creation, you'll create all your parts, and then you'll take it into another environment where you'll then put them together, and what we do constraining. With that, or you could actually, for assembly creation, just create everything in place. So you're able to do that with Inventor as well. 2D drawing creation. Now, you know that Autodesk made AutoCAD. AutoCAD is probably the best 2D drawing package in the world. So Inventor has got some seriously good 2D drawing sort of creation components. From being able to take your 3D model and then on a 2D piece of paper, A3, A4, A2, A1, A0, create your front view, side view, top view, isometric view, and then, you create your section views or detail views. Now, when the 3D model or component changes, what happens is you're then able to go and, the 2D drawing actually goes and, automatically updates as well. So, sorry, that's a very good point over there. Now, you've got your visualization and presentation files as well. Okay, so with that, you're able to then go and create very, very good photorealistic pictures for that. So the client is able to get a better representation of what you're actually making. And then you get the presentation file, and that's where you can sort of pull everything apart and put it back together again. So it's kind of like a manual on how all of these parts come together, how do these parts get taken apart. And all of this is all parametric. And what that means is that it will update according to what you've done. So whenever you create something in Inventor, and also Fusion 360, when we take a look at that, because it's parametric, it will then go and update according to the rules that you've given it. So for instance, in our 2D sketching, what you've got is something called parametric constraints. And these parametric constraints are things like parallel or perpendicular. So you don't have to go and, between two lines, say, okay, well, these two lines have to be 90 degrees to each other. You can say these two lines must be perpendicular, which means that it will always be 90 degrees. Then what is Fusion 360? So this is the internet definition. So when I Googled it, Fusion 360 is a cloud-based 3D modeling, CAD, CAM, CAE, and PCB software platform for product design and manufacturing. Okay. So as you can see over here, the interface is a little bit different. Okay, so I'm just going to go up to Inventor. So interface is a little bit different over here. But as you can see, you've kind of got that ribbon at the top. And then, you'll see over here, you've got your components and parts left-hand side over there, as well as you can see there over here, you got your components and part on the left-hand side over here. Okay. Now, let's see, what can Fusion 360 do that Inventor can do? And as you can see, I've actually just duplicated that list over here because it can also do your sketch creation, your part modeling, solid or surface, your sheet metal, your assembly creation, your 2D drawing creation, visualization, presentation, and it's also parametric. Okay, and I did this because, fundamentally, Fusion and Inventor can do the same things. It's just that sometimes Fusion is stronger on some components and weaker in some other components compared to Inventor. And, we will be talking about that as we go. Okay, so now you've come up to it. You've seen they both do the same thing. Now, which one do you take? Okay, so the kind of questions that you've got to ask yourself is, what do you do? Now, are you going to be doing large production type work? Are you working in a factory and there's lines and lines of conveyors where components have to go from one component to the other component? Do you have like 10 CNC machines in your place? Do you have 30 designers? Do these designers have to interact with each other? Do these designers have to interact with external consultants? Okay. Are you just doing R&D? Okay, so maybe in that big environment that you're working on, you might be the guy sitting in the back room doing R&D. So think that, with the R&D stuff, do you need Inventor or do you need Fusion 360? Are you a one-man band? Are you a hobbyist? Are you, sort of someone who's retired who wants to kind of tinker with something? Maybe make it a little bit of a sort of a hobby, and then, kind of actually even go into production because you want to do maybe a little bit of work on the side or something like that. Are you stuck in an office or are you free to roam? Okay, and this is kind of linked in with the data management requirements because, managing your data when working with CAD is quite important. If you ever work with Inventor, what happens is you open up an assembly and it gives you errors and it says, I can't find this part, I can't find this part, or I can't find this part. Or you work in Inventor, you open up an assembly and it says, okay, I found two parts of the same name. What do you want to do? Now, in Fusion 360 doesn't really work like that because everything is cloud-based. You've got a little bit more freedom when it comes to that, and also you'll have less hassles like that. But when I say, are you stuck in an office or free to roam, it does make a big impact on what you are, which package you'll go to. Because, for instance, as we'll see a little bit later, Inventor is kind of all based on local networks, and Fusion 360, you can actually go anywhere in the world and your data will be available to you at all times. Okay, so let's just take a look at specifically Fusion 360. One of the things I do and must point out is it is a much lower entry point when it comes to price. Okay, so this is actually a very good question. When you come in and you buy any software, you come in and you say, okay, right, I ask guys, what's your budget? If they tell me that it's like 10,000 Rand and that's kind of all it is, and they cannot go any higher than that, then it automatically takes Inventor off the table. Okay. Or what I always suggest is that, if you are looking at ramping up your operation, start off with Fusion 360 because the skill set you need to know of how you design and model with Fusion 360 is very similar to the way that Inventor does it. So if you start working on Fusion 360, because of all the integration with it, it is very, very easy to go from Fusion 360 to Inventor when you've ramped up your operation and now you need to expand, employ more people, and expand, go to bigger premises because the operation has become too big. And this is now, as I said over here, this is where it becomes from like an R&D hobbyist or single user and now becomes large production work. And then large production work, then I would recommend going to Inventor. Fusion 360 is also web-based, okay? Not the installation. The installation does work on your local drive. It's on your local drive, but the files in the filing system is all in the cloud, okay? And what this means is that I can, if I buy a Fusion 360 license, I can go to anywhere in the world, open up, install Fusion 360, log in with my details, and then I'm able to access my files there and then. You're not able to do this with Inventor. Okay? So with Inventor, I can't just go install it anywhere in the world and be expected to be able to access my files because those files are sitting behind a firewall in a company on a network somewhere. Obviously, if I've got a laptop and everything's on there, it's great. I can take it around. But then, once again, I can't share any of those files with anyone else. With Fusion 360, because it is in the cloud, I'm able then to go and give access to other people anywhere in the world, just using their email address. And that access is either read, write, download, modify. So they can do something with the models, or they cannot do something with the models. Another thing that Fusion has got is everything exists in one file. So if I take a look at this picture over here with this pump, it's all the components are sitting in one file. It's not linked into it. Okay, like with Inventor, you link into it. It actually doesn't reside in the assembly file. And so if I had to remove one of those part files and I try to open up the assembly again, it would actually give an error and say, I cannot find that file. Whereas in Fusion 360, everything sits in one file, so you won't have those file link errors. All the design environments are accessible from within that file. Okay? As we'll see with Inventor later on, Inventor's got different types of files, part file, assembly file, drawing file, whereas Fusion 360 has got one file, and in that one file, you've got the different environments. So for instance, as you see over here, design environment, generative design environment, your render environment, your animation environment, your simulation environment, the manufacturing environment, and your drawing environment. Okay. And as you click on each of those different environments or workspaces, you'll see that the top here, solid surface mesh sheet metal tool will change in accordance to what you're actually working on over here. Okay, so just on the web-based file management, okay, we have spoken a bit about this a little bit. So you can give permission to anyone from any location all around the globe, okay? And this allows you to be very flexible in how we're working. I mean, at the moment, what's happening with the whole COVID, people are working from home. People need to access the data, but people also need to give access to their data to other people. So this is a very, very great way of working. Okay? Not to say that you can't do the same thing with Inventor, but this is set up straight out the box to be working, in this kind of environment. And the nice thing about this whole web-based file management is two different ways to access it. So if you've got the Fusion 360 software, you get a Fusion Teams license, and you're able to access all your designs through there. Or what you can do, you can get a Fusion Teams license, which is also much cheaper than Fusion 360. If you're not going to be doing any design work, to be able to access the data that you are working with over here. Okay, so that's just a little bit about Fusion and kind of, the pros and cons of that. Now let's take a look at Inventor. So, as I said, if budget is an issue, Inventor might not be the thing for you straight out the box because it is comparatively higher in price than Fusion 360. Okay, so there are two different types of software packages you can buy to get Inventor. Go through a little bit later, but basically it is a lot more expensive than Fusion 360. It has separate files for each design environment. So if you take a look at this graphic over here, when I create a new file, I'm given 4 options. I'm able to go and create a sheet metal part or a standard part. So it's an IPT, file extension name. I can go and create a standard assembly, a standard factory layout assembly, or weldment assembly. So those, at the moment, they're sheet metal, standard part, standard assembly, standard factory layout, standard weldment. That's already 5 different types of assemblies that I've got, or 5 different types of parts or files that I've got for a different design environment. Then, even with the drawing, we've got 2 different types of drawing environments. You're either DWG or your IDW. And then you've got an additional design environment file, which is your IPN or presentation file, which allows you then to go and pull your assembly apart, put it back together again, and see how that works. Okay, just something that really, these are 3 things that I want to just point out that is only in Inventor, which allows Inventor to be a better automation tool, automation design tool than I would say Fusion 360. So for instance, over here, you'll see I've got a tube and pipe module. And that tube and pipe module, if you're going to be doing tubes and you've got to put an elbow in or put a valve in or put a T-piece in or anything like that, and have the pipe get cut automatically. In Inventor, you've got the tube and pipe module, which does it automatically for you. With Fusion 360, you'd have to go and create your swept profile, or I think it's called a pipe. Then you take maybe a flange that you have to put on, you take your flange, and you've got to constrain it to it. Okay, or put a joint between the two. Another flange has to come on, and you're going to put a joint between the first flange and the second flange, and then you're going to go and create another profile where the profile is going to be swept, or the pipe, and then you're going to go and create where the rest of the pipe goes. Okay, so that is something where you'll see it's automatic in Inventor, and it's not automated in Fusion 360. Then something that's also very nice is frame generators. So if you're doing things like sort of steel structures, beams, columns, footings, things like that, then the frame generator, or create a skid. Frame generator is very nice. You create your sort of a 2D profile or your skeleton model, as you would call it, and then you say, okay, right, on this line over here, I want a square tube or rectangular tube. I want an I-beam or U-channel. And it will create the length according to the length of that sketch that you created. If you go into that skeleton, you update the lengths of the skeleton part, your tubes and pipes, your tubes or your frames will update as well. Okay, and that's for in Fusion 360 is all a manual process. Then probably the best kind of configurator that you've got is iLogic. And iLogic, if you've ever used things like Excel, if-then statements, exactly what it is. And so if you've never done any programming before, iLogic is fantastic. It's not too difficult to learn. I was very, very scared of iLogic. I was very scared of any programming. I'm not a programmer at heart. I've sort of grown up on the CAD side. And iLogic, for me, getting into it was very quick and easy. Just think logically. It's all logic. If this happens, then that must happen. Great. And if you have never worked with parameters, I would definitely suggest going to parameters, and it works very well with your iLogic. And the nice thing about iLogic is, well, you don't have to know what to write for the coding. We've got something that we call snippets, and those snippets kind of put a template sort of coded down for you, and then you can just go and modify it to do what you need to do. Oh, and just with that, Fusion 360 doesn't have this. So this is something that is, so great. So, if you needed to do something like automation or a lot of configuration, because, you've got maybe a stock assembly, and from that stock assembly, you've got to get like maybe 10, 20, 30,000, 50, 40, 50 different configurations out of it. It's much easier to go and change something in Inventor, and it will be a very, very manual process in Fusion 360. Now, with these two, so if you got your tube and pipe model, you get your frame generator, you'll get the content center as well. So the McMaster car, I think, is a website that Fusion 360 has, which allows you to download your sort of library components. Okay, it is very nice to have. It's got all these sort of hardware components, but also a lot of the, all the metadata is populated by whoever's created that that website. Your content center is great. It also does that. It's got your fastest, it's got all your hardware, shaft parts, your bearings, things like that, structural shapes, your U-channels, rectangular tubes, circular tubes, square tubes, your tube and pipe, T's, bends, valves, etc. So it's got all of that in there, but you can also go and modify this stuff so that you've got your own metadata in it, your own, pull out your own descriptions, pull out your own part numbers, pull out your own stock number, okay? And that's all sitting locally, which you can share with your sort of extended team. I think this content center works a little bit better. I like it much better than the McMaster card, but each to their own. There is something available for you in Fusion 360 as it is in Inventor as well. But with this content center, the frame generator and the tube and pipe module basically rely on that content center because that is where they pull all their parts out to create these designs over here. Okay. So another thing is Inventor saves everything locally, either in your Windows, okay, your kind of Windows filing system, or in the Autodesk Vault, which is the data management system that you get with Inventor. So if you buy Inventor or AutoCAD, you actually get Autodesk Vault Basic, which has got sort of basic file management properties to it. Okay, you also get the Vault Workgroup and you get the Vault Professional as well. Now, one thing that Inventor, I will say, is that when you have to go Inventor. If you start to get parts, 2,000 plus parts, go Inventor. Fusion 360 is not made, the architecture, the backbone of it is not made for large assemblies. And I can tell you now, if you have large assemblies and you go Fusion 360 but you think, oh, it's much cheaper and it does the same thing, you will spend more time fighting the software than actually fighting and getting your design out to the client. So unfortunately, in sort of what I've experienced, if you have large assemblies, you have to go Inventor. There's no question about it. Fusion 360 is not the software package for you. Okay. So which is better? Okay, just as I said, I don't think anything is better. But in certain sort of criteria that you might have, I would say in large productions, definitely Inventor. Okay? And these are kind of the things that I have sort of experienced. And definitely if you have to pull out a bill of materials, go Inventor. And the bill of materials that you can pull out in your 2D for Fusion 360 is not that great. I think there are sort of plugins, but the additional plugins that you have to buy. So I haven't really worked with it, but I just know that straight out the box, if you need a bit of materials, go Inventor. If you're a small shop or do R&D, Fusion 360 is probably better for you, with your bespoke design. Okay, but once again, it's not saying that you can't use Inventor for it, but if you're going to be doing sort of one-off designs and kind of send it to the shop being made for a client, then I'd say go Fusion 360, and that's also because of the price point. So those are my criteria for which one will you go. Look, there are lots of other different criteria that you can kind of take a look at, and that's why I always say when looking at this kind of high-end software that we sort of work with every day, talk to your reseller. Come talk to us. We've got lots of experienced guys. Tell us what you do. Tell us what your workflows are. Tell us kind of how you sort of get around your day, how you get around your designs, how you like to save everything. And, it might not just be that it's just Inventor. It might not be it's just Fusion 360. It might be a combination of both. Okay. So, you might have 10 designers and 2 of them might need Fusion 360 because, as we'll see in the next couple of slides, and then 8 of them will be working on Inventor because the guys using Fusion 360 might not need all that functionality from Inventor. Just before we go on to the next part in comparing the two or collaborating with the 2 of them, just this is how you can purchase Fusion 360 or Inventor. So you can either purchase Fusion 360 on its own, you can purchase Inventor on its own as well. So those are just 2 different packages. Or you can purchase a product design and manufacturing collections, which will then actually include both Inventor and Fusion 360. So, if you're working on Inventor and you need to do something in Fusion 360, there is a nice little link between the 2. You do your design in Inventor, you pop over to Fusion 360, you create whatever you need to do there, bring it back into Inventor, and you continue design, and everyone's happy. Yeah. So, collaborating for the best outcome. So, how do we collaborate between the 2? So, Autodesk created this technology called AnyCAD. And AnyCAD works where you've created a model in another software package because Autodesk realizes that not everyone's just going to use Inventor. We've kind of we know that other people might use SolidWorks or SolidEdge or CATIA. So they've created this technology where you're able to then go and import a file and keep a live link to the original software. So with Inventor and Fusion 360, Inventor can go into Fusion 360 and Fusion 360 can go into Inventor. And if for instance, if I'm in Fusion 360 with an AnyCAD reference model from Inventor and the Inventor model changes, it'll update in Fusion 360. If I've created any geometry which is dependent on that Inventor geometry, it will then automatically update. And the same thing going the other way. Take the Fusion 360 file, go into Inventor, you work off it, Fusion 360 file changes, go back into Inventor, whatever you've created which is dependent on that Fusion 360 geometry will change. Okay, so my opinion is that if you're going to be in a large design environment and you've got both Fusion and 360, Fusion 360 and Inventor in the mix, design on Inventor. Okay? I think, with the different configurations is a much better tool. Okay, and then what happens is if you need to do something like really spectacular or something that has got lots of computing power, go to Fusion 360 because it's based in the cloud. Now, I'll just put your AnyCAD technology because this is how the 2 kind of work together. And for instance, if I'm creating a part or something like that, and I want some part that's going to be wow the customer, something that's out the box, looks different, where their client's going to come and say, I want your design because of just that little piece of design you got over there. So Autodesk has got something called generative design. And generative design allows you to basically create alternate geometries for a specific manufacturing process that you specified. And the nice thing about it, if you take a look at this component on the right, this bracket, it's something that is very organic. And traditional manufacturing processes will not work able to create that. But we have now obviously got into the whole 3D printing, additive manufacturing, which will be able to produce that. So what you would do is say, okay, right, I need a component. This is where the component will be sort of situated or fixed. I need so much force in it, and it needs to be held over here. And it needs to be titanium, and it's got to be 5 kilograms, make the component. And, Fusion 360 will go with its generative design and go create the component for you. Inventor will not and cannot do this because it will not have the computing power to be able to go and get designs like this. So you will find that, even going forward, Inventor will never have this. And that's kind of how Autodesk has positioned it. You've got two fantastic pieces of software. And because, you've got the one that computes in the cloud, use that cloud to an advantage, but then have the link between the two so that you can use the two of these in the best way possible. If you've ever done PCB design, this can be, traditionally what's happened is you've had the manufacturing or the mechanical guys or engineers creating the housing or something like that, or your whole component, and you've got the electrical guys creating the PCB boards or the sort of the wiring and the single line diagrams. But how do we bring them together? So Fusion 360, with the use of a technology they Autodesk purchased a couple of years ago called Eagle, they are able to do this. So either you can create everything in Fusion 360, with your PCB design, and the nice thing with the PCB, the board design changes, it automatically changes the 3D components that are sitting on the board in Fusion 360 as well. Okay, so you can either do that all fully inside, sort of Fusion 360, and maybe it's just the part which houses the PCB board, and you can take it back into Inventor and then go and carry the design over there. So that's where I would think that, Fusion 360, I'm not going to say much stronger, it's just the only option over Inventor. Okay, and so FEA, yes, you might say, okay, well, Inventor's also got FEA in it. So Inventor's got Nastran, which you can only get in the product design and manufacturing connections, not just with Inventor on its own. And so the FEA in Fusion 360 and the FEA in Nastran both works on the same solver, which is the Nastran solver. And you'll see it's got the same studies. So you can do static stress in Inventor and Fusion 360, modal frequencies. The electronics cooling and the thermal, that is, I think, Fusion 360 only. Thermal stress, you can do both in Inventor and Fusion 360. Structural buckling, both in both software packages. Nonlinear static stress in both software packages. Event simulation, that it can only be done in Fusion 360. And one of the reasons for that was the processing power needed to be able to do that simulation. Okay. And you've got shape optimization, which is available in both. And then your plastic injection molding, that is also available. That's actually a preview that's coming from Inventor. So if you ever worked in Inventor Professional, you might have seen one of the modules there, the mold module, so there is that. Now, I would say, with the FEA, if you're going to do one of these things, maybe do it in Fusion 360 because of the quicker processing. If you want to keep on designing while it's processing, do it in Fusion 360. Because in Inventor, your piece is going to lock up and you must go and have a cup of coffee or lunch and dinner and come back the next day, depending on, the simulation. Okay. So just, bear that in mind that if you do have a lot of processing, where time is of the essence, then maybe take it to Fusion 360 where it's got cloud processing over there. One of the things to note is that cloud processing does have a charge to it. So you will be charged for those simulations. Okay. Then this is something that I truly, truly believe in. If Inventor has got Inventor CAM, which runs on the HSM technology, Fusion 360 has it as well. So do you do CAM in Inventor or do you CAM in Fusion 360? I truly believe do the CAM in Fusion 360. And it's just, as I look at the manufacturing sort of modules or the manufacturing technologies that they're putting into it, Autodesk seems to be putting more sort of effort into the CAM in Fusion 360. And you'll see that with the manufacturing extension they've got. So Autodesk bought over a technology company called Delcam. And Delcam actually was one of the best sort of manufacturing companies in the world. They really have some very powerful stuff like PowerMold. And I can see that they are starting to sort of migrate some of that technology, from PowerMold and the other technologies they had or software and FeatureCAM into Fusion 360 by the way of the manufacturing extension. And this manufacturing extension is actually very nice or is very useful because, you might just need the normal CAM, okay? And then every so now and again, you might need the manufacturing extension. So you can just sort of bolt on that extension for the year or whatever it is that you need it. Whereas, if you had to go buy, for instance, PowerMold is very expensive. But here what they're doing, you're getting the best of both worlds. A very nice, cost-effective design package with some very good CAM in it. And then if you do need to do that extra sort of really powerful manufacturing processes like maybe steep and shallow, then you're able to add on the manufacturing extension. And that's something that Inventor does not have. So I would then say that, from the CAM side, definitely use your Fusion 360. And, also traditionally what happens is the guys doing the CAM or, making the components in the CNC machine, they don't need Invent. They just need Fusion 360. You send them the part, they AnyCAD it in, and they create their components over there. Okay, so just in summary, the way that I would work, between the Inventor and Fusion 360, all my design work we've done in Inventor. It's got things like iLogic. It's got things like your structural design. It's got things like your sort of tube and pipe modeling and iLogic. And I do kind of all of that to make it nice and configured. And then for Fusion 360, any of the downstream processes like sort of CAM, very processor intensive FEA if you have to, as well as your PCB design. Okay. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for watching. Are there any questions? Okay, if we don't have any questions, thank you very much for watching. If you do want to get hold of us, here's all our information. We've got branches in Durban, Port Elizabeth, Cape Town, and Johannesburg. Thank you very much for watching. Cheers and enjoy the rest of your weekend.